he goes, he says, "Get yourself sized up for a uniform. You're going to be our first police cadet." And he saw something in me, I think, at that time. And so when every time I actually went to work and everything, and I still do it to this day, 41 years later, I use the power of the badge to actually help people, not to theoretically oppress people and to squelch them. And so it's been a good run for me. I know you talked to Adam and everything. And in my 41-year career, I was the commander of a police academy, a SWAT team. I did warrants and extraditions all over the world. I did protection details, and also I think Adam knows that served as an EMT fireman for probably close to 38 years. And I think we were talking earlier, and I'm not trying to take too much of your time, but I spent a lot of time traveling the world. 6 years in the Marines and 26 in the Air Force Reserve, flying around the world in all the combat zones.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Well, it was my honor, and so I mean, is there anything else you'd like to know?
Sure, man. I want to know everything, but we'll get to that in a second.
No, that's
Um,
good. I just don't want to take too much of your time. I know you
oh
got
no, hey,
Adam.
we've got plenty of time. Adam, how's it going, my brother? You know, you and I, we go way back, dude. And I've known you for a long time, and I know I was busting your chops there for a little bit, but reality is, man, you've been a good friend, and I've always had a lot of respect for what you do. Give us a little bit about your background, dude. How did you become a paramedic? Give us a little bit of information about how you got to where you are right now.
I never quite made the paramedic role. I'm actually an advanced EMT, so I'm kind of one step below paramedic.
Okay.
But I was out back in the early 90s as a junior fireman. I was a fireman for 20 years on and off before I decided to switch over to EMS back in 2019. Got my EMT in 2019. I got my advanced EMT last year. I did try paramedic school. I just didn't make that. Um, so at this point, I just became the interim chief at Wakefield EMS. So I have, I don't know, 6 years as an EMT, AEMT, kind of, give or take. The only reason I didn't become a police officer is because I don't like donuts. So
You don't like donuts?
Oh,
Ooh.
it's already started. Okay, it's
Here we go with the jokes. So let me ask you: Is there like a thing between paramedics, police officers, firefighters? I mean, I know everybody busts cops' balls for liking donuts, but is there kind of like a thing between you guys, like there is like in the military, like being a Cav Scout in the Army? We've got things with Marines eating crayons and things like that.
every cop wants to be a fireman, and every fireman wants to be a paramedic. That's how it is.
Mm. I'm going to have to remain silent on that particular statement. It's kind of funny though, because I went out on a real serious accident about 2 weeks ago, where this lady was traveling southbound with her husband on this particular roadway, and actually she was going northbound. Adam was on the call actually, and what Adam didn't tell you was Adam's a damn good EMT and a good, very good advanced EMT. He's one of those guys, if you know is coming out for the call, you know you're going to be well taken care of. And so we go out there, and we're out there. They had the firemen. The firemen are out there doing a rescue, and the EMS folks show up, and it was very smooth. And we were very professional on scene. We got done. I went back to the firehouse, and then the ribbon started, and they were like, "Oh, you want to come out and run fire calls, oh, chief?" And I'm like, "No," I says, "I just want to make sure we're good." And I says, "Besides, I want to come out and see my heroes at work." So yeah,
That didn't sound
it's all
patriotic at
good
all.
banner, and I, Adam and I, we go back and forth and everything, but it's a professional respect, because you deal with a lot of stressful things in your day, and you see crazy stuff, and you could theoretically be talking to somebody you're out with on the side of the highway with, and 3 minutes later they're in a cardiac arrest, or you're performing life saving skills that you probably had to start responding to on a minute's notice.
Mm-hmm.
And I see somebody says, "Hey, my dad did dare, and his mascot was Dunkin' Donata."
Dunkin' Donata.
Yeah.
For those of you on TikTok that can't see, this says there's a comment on the screen that says, "Hey, my dad did dare, and his mascot was Dunkin' Donata." She backs the Blue Brothers and Uncles are police. Thank you all for your service. Thank you, TK. So tell me a little bit, guys. Have you had any experiences on the job that you would say were life changing, like life altering experiences? I mean, because you guys got to see a lot of stuff out there.
You mind if I go first, Adam?
Go ahead.
I prefer you
All right.
did. The less he talks, the better.
Well, yeah.
So
It's
mean.
ugly. It's ugly. Um,
He looks like
so
a
it,
Neanderthal.
I know he's scary. He's like a little miniature Viking warrior.
Yeah,
He
you
looks
want to
like a
sit
teddy
behind his
bear.
head, but you want to yank on his beard at the same
Don't
time. I mean,
It's almost like that Santa Claus thing.
You guys are so mean. He looks
I
like a
know
teddy bear.
we love Adam. We love Adam.
Adam's a great guy. We love Adam.
So
That's why he's here.
just today, I was out working patrol today, and I still love working patrol after 41 years because
Even
again,
as
I
the chief.
even as the chief, I go out on patrol
All right.
and I still answer radio calls. And I work, I work a whole, out on the street and everything. So this young man comes to me today, and he walks up, and I can see he was in some sort of distress, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, dude? You all right?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm a combat vet." And he says, "And I'm having a really rough day." And he starts to tell me. I go, "Well, talk to me." I says, "Where were you at?" So he starts to tell me he was in Iraq and he was in Kirkuk, and I've been to Kirkuk several times. And so I didn't tell him yet though, and I started talking to him, and I says, "Wow," so let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. And you could tell that young man was very distressed. He was in a very high state of anxiety. And I talked to him for about an hour and a half. I bought him coffee, and about 15 minutes in the conversation, I go, "Just so you know," I said, "I'm a combat veteran too." And I said, "I served in Kirkuk, Mosul, Tikrit, Balad, Basra, Afghanistan." I'm naming all these places off. And he's like, "So you kind of get it, right?" And I go, "So let me ask you a directed question." And this was today. This was at 1 o'clock. And I go, "What are your intentions? What do you plan on doing?" And he goes, "I got to be honest with you." He says, "If I hadn't spoke to you today," he says, "I was going to look for the nearest bridge."
No shit.
And so, and I spoke to him for just for a second. And in that moment, we had a connection. And I looked at him and I go, "Look, man," I said, "I'm always here." I said, "I can't promise you the results or anything. I can promise you that I'll advocate for you." I said, "I'm a combat vet. I fully understand." And I go, "I understand the stressors. I understand what it was like to be in the box and coming back to the world per se." And you could tell he'd been some serious issues. He had some serious combat issues. I could tell. And, I didn't see a lot of hard combat. I did see combat, but I didn't see a lot of hard combat like probably what he had seen. So, for me, that was important to have that connection just again today. And, I'll let Adam talk about his stuff, and then I can talk about some other ones I've just recently experienced, some other really off the wall stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Adam, go for it, brother. And then Ashley's got some questions for you guys, but they're going to be a little bit more penetrating. I hope you're ready for this because she's going to pick you guys
Penetrating, he
apart.
said.
I did say that. I said penetrating.
Adam?
Gonna be a little difficult.
Ooh,
But you're
Adam
going
likes
to,
it like that.
he likes it, Ralph.
We see that we we see a lot of shit that we can't fix, right? So I was in EMS for 4 years, and before I had my first cardiac save, um, and it took a lot of people. It took people from a crowd. I was at a 5K. A guy collapsed at the line. There were nurses and doctors that ran out of the crowd to help do CPR. We finally got the guy back. So we get a report on that. That hey, you actually had a save at one point. So that's kind of why I keep doing what I'm doing. That one save, it kind of recharged you after 3 or 4 years of saying, what am I doing? Like, I can't help people. You know what I mean? And then you can finally get that one save to help you out. I kind of focus myself more on the mental health aspect of it because I don't think that is talked about enough. You hear about it a lot with the military, but you don't hear about it with the first responders. So um, you can pull case study after case study of first responders that are ending their lives because they just can't handle the stressors because you got all the stressors at work, but then you got the same stress at home and you get that everybody else has, right? You got the family, you got the kids, you got the so sometimes it feels like we can't get away from it.
Mm-hmm. That's tough, man. As somebody like I spent a lot of time away from my family because of the military. I was on 2 deployments, and then my time in basic training. We did 19 weeks. I did 1 station unit training, so I was at Fort Knox for a long time, and that's a difficult thing to do, to be away from your family. And you guys in service, you guys, especially police officers, You got to put in a lot of time. And you're talking about a time right now, it's really difficult to be a police officer because you got people that just want to hate on you. You know, that's like they see the police as the enemy. They don't see the police as somebody who's there to help you. But there are, I hate to say this, but there are police officers who abuse their power too. It exists. And it's those people that are given the 99%, you know, the difficult time that they're having. Would you agree or disagree with that, Eric?
I would agree. I mean, I'll tell you, I worked when I first came out of the Marines. I worked in the city of Philadelphia on a foot patrol in Philadelphia, in one of the baddest areas of the 22nd district, in the 23rd, 22nd district area, and it was a very challenging environment. However, you know what I did notice? Most of the folks, 80 to 85% of the folks that were in that very challenging environment, were very supportive of the police, and they would quietly tell you, look, thank you for what you're doing. You know, we know it's a tough job. Not everybody here hates you. And so throughout my career, I found that to be the norm, honestly. And the TV publicizes and says, you know, the cops are the bad people. Yeah, well, you know what? We do have some bad apples, just like we have bad apples in teachers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And every occupation has them. So what has kept me going throughout all my years, because um, you know, we run across these stressors every day, and it's just crazy. And what has kept me kind of going is, um, you know, the hope that there's good people out there still. I'm very altruistic when it comes to that. I'm not a kumbaya guy, but I will say that I find good people every day I go out to work. And you know, like today, I mean, I ran across that young man who was in great despair, and Adam was talking about personal life. 3 weeks ago, my brother, who was a combat veteran, passed away
Sorry to hear that.
unexpectedly, and I had to go out there and deal with it. And he'd become very reclusive because he didn't know how to deal with the trauma. And so I had to go out there and identify the body at the residence. And I'm going to tell you right now, that was probably in my lifetime was probably one of the most stressful events I had ever experienced, because I was able to detach from the reality of other experiences. And I had to call his children that lived in Kansas and explain to them their father's been passed away. And I now had to run all his estate issues. And you know, and it wasn't in my mind. It was very surreal, and so it took me back a little bit, because again, when you're on the job, you can kind of separate a little bit, but when you're here dealing with it firsthand, it's you have to cope. And so cumulative effect over all those years was kind of building up a little bit. So I actually had to take a couple of days and just relax and kind of think about other things for a while.
Understood, man. That's got to be a lot of stress. Question from TikTok. What is the funniest call you've ever been on? The funniest, most entertaining.
Oh gosh, I have to think about a couple of those, because I've had a bunch of them. They haven't all been traumatic. I'm gonna let Adam go on this one first. I have to think about a couple of them, because I have to. I'm not as quick as Adam. I'm a little older guy.
All right, that's okay. Well, I mean, you're getting up there in years, clearly getting on in you're in the later parts of your life, and I understand that. So, Adam, what's going on, man? You tell me, what is the funniest thing that you've witnessed? And as an EMT, I'm sure you've seen some like naked people, probably people on drugs, something to that effect. You on
Uh,
drugs in the mirror, things like that.
I'm trying to think of the funniest thing that I ever saw. There's a bunch of them. I'm trying to think.
Way
Um,
to go. Way to go, Big Red One. You really put these guys on the spot.
You stumped them both.
Oh my
And
God!
the first thing Feather hears is naked people.
Feather.
Well, I'll tell you. I was just talking about this morning, okay, and we talk about the brotherhood. The police brotherhood. So we had a police officer. This has probably been 30 years now, and I won't use his name, but I was actually just talking to his family yesterday at my brother's memorial, and they came over and they were showing support. And I looked over and I go, when I was a young officer, we went to the 7-Eleven, and so we go into the 7-Eleven, and this officer, he was quite a ladies' man, and the ladies loved him. And so I go to the 7-Eleven to get a cup of coffee because it's late at night. And I walk in there and I look in the back of the 7-Eleven. There's like 5 or 6 people crowded around the bulletin board in the back. And I go back there and I go, "Yo, guys, what you looking at, man?" And they're laughing like all get out, right? Well, I look over. There is. I'll use his first name. There's Larry, and he's apparently been posing for some of his girlfriends. He's got his police Stetson hat on. He's got his gun belt hanging around his belt. He's kind of posing like this, like how you
Oh
like
my
me now.
God.
And he's very stimulated.
Oh, really?
In this picture,
He's
and I
very
go,
stimulated. If you didn't hear
yeah,
that.
yes. He's very erect in this photo, and I go,
He just says
oh
it.
my god. And I reach up and I go, okay, guys, this is a good picture. And I go, I'll be confiscating this for evidence. And I pull it off and I saw Larry and I go, 104 to 106. I said, can you make a meet with me? I have property that belongs to you. It was the naked picture. He apparently, one of his old girlfriends got mad at him and put this photo at the 7-Eleven where we all go. And for 20 years, everybody, I had that photo, I kept it. And for 20 years, I'd call him when I go, yo, Larry, man, I got a piece of property that belongs to you, son.
Got a piece of property belongs to you, son.
Oh, the
Sounds like you
blackmail.
got some dip in your
And,
mouth.
and I told him, I go, damn, son, I'm feeling kind of inadequate, man. This picture's kind of crazy. I said, I know I'm a little guy, but damn, son.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, we got the police officer talking about the size of the man's manhood.
It was pretty. I'm telling you right now, I was feeling pretty inadequate. I was like, golly, Larry, no wonder you're the
So,
ladies' man.
guys hung like a donkey, huh?
Oh, I think we called him Trigger.
Called him Trigger? I guess it'd make you feel that way if you're hung like a hamster.
Yes, a stud mouse. I was a stud field mouse.
Well, at least you know where you are in the hierarchy of things.
It was funny though. I laughed about that yesterday, and we just because his family's all first responders now. I was just dying laughing.
Well, Big Red One says, hopefully your wife didn't see that picture. She might have got the wrong impression if she did. I'll tell you what.
Might not have been my wife.
Why not? Why do you have a picture of a weird looking dude with a seriously hard erect?
Right. Start having suspicions. Start having suspicions.
I've always wondered about you cops. I'm pretty sure I'm right on at this point. What do you think,
yeah.
Adam?
I think he likes your mustache.
You think he likes my mustache? You want to hang one of my handlebars,
It's not
buddy?
as sexy as your beard, dude. I'm telling you right now, it's a close one.
My mustache and my little goatee is way sexier than that beard. Y'all want to see what these guys look like? I'm going to show you I'm going to show TikTok what y'all look like. There you go. Here we go. I'm going to flip the camera and look at these Neanderthals. Yeah.
You better not be lumping me into that.
There's Adam. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. He's just so cute. You just want to squeeze his cheeks.
I do. I just want to play with his beard. I want to braid it.
This is the police officer who we are having questions about his manhood. But,
no, about Larry's manhood, not mine.
About Larry. There you go. Now you have an idea who we're talking to on the podcast. But in all seriousness, guys, y'all do a lot of work. You guys do a lot of stuff out there, man. You guys put your lives on the line. And that, have you ever been in a situation, especially you, Eric, where have you been shot? I mean, have you been in any? Have you ever had to discharge your firearm?
In 41 years, I've been fortunate. I've not had to discharge my firearm.
Thank God.
I have drawn it out several times, and I made a traffic stop one time, quite a few years ago when we carried revolvers. And this would have been probably 90, 91. And I stopped this guy for a minor speeding violation. It was nothing heinous. And I stop him, and we're in this residential neighborhood. There was two older ladies sitting up on the porch drinking iced tea because it was a nice, quiet Sunday morning. And as I stop the guy, I walk up to the car, and the guy mumbles something. And as he mumbles it, he reaches his right hand across to the glove compartment, and he pulls out, it looked like a 25 automatic. And I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, and it's in slow motion. I'm like, I think he has a gun. And it felt like it was slow motion to me, but in reality, it was probably pretty quick. And as he pulled the gun over, I pulled my weapon out and I punched him in the back of his head. And I was getting ready to snap the trigger on the pistol. And when I hit him in the back of the head, I think he thought he got shot, and he dropped the gun. Well, before he dropped the gun, I heard it go click. And he literally was going to fire the gun at me. And to this day, I don't know why he did it. I think he just got into a fight with his wife or something. And when I punched him in the back of the head, I asked him, I said, how come you dropped the gun? He goes, I thought I'd been shot and killed. He says, because you hit me so hard with the barrel of that gun. And I saw, if you know revolvers, they have two clicks. It goes first click, second click, and then it releases. And I heard the second click. I distinctly remember hearing the second click. And I was like, thank God I didn't have to shoot this guy. So I just pulled the gun back, decocked, and covered him, and called for an assist. And so thank goodness I didn't have to. And there was multiple other events, and some guys, and I worked some high profile assignments. And where when I went to work at night, I mean, it was not unusual to have to be involved in a fight or something else because I worked in a very high crime area. So, but thank God I didn't have to. I know some guys that have worked their career, and then some of them have been involved in a couple use of force events, and most of them are like me, where you don't have to shoot anybody after a 40-year career. And if you're going out looking for trouble, you're going to find it. But
Hmm.
I always went out with the mindset I was there to protect me and whoever else was around me, not to go out there and be offensive.
That's a good way to be, man. Ash, you got some questions for these guys?
And let me.
Well, I want to hear Adam's story first.
Oh,
There
okay,
you
go
go.
for it, Adam.
So do
So
I, Adam. Come on, Adam. Come on, Adam.
I know in 5 years, 6 years in EMT, I've been assaulted 3 times by people. And there's been many other times where the cops had gotten to him before we did. So it's definitely a real fear to have. There are calls that we're told to stage out and wait on police, but where we're at in very rural southern Lancaster County, there's not always a cop around.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eric's nice enough that he gets our back from Quarryville a lot of the time.
I do.
As long as he's on, if I call Eric, he's there.
Would you sorry, the question coming from TikTok, would you consider your area small town or larger city area?
We're very rural where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Blink your eyes, you're going through it. Now we cover 5 different townships. I don't know how many square miles that will be, Eric. Do you have any idea?
Gosh, I don't even know, honestly. I mean, it's they call it the southern end, and it is when things go wrong in that end of the county, they go wrong. And you like Adam was saying, you're typically by yourself. Like I work single man patrol. A lot of times I'll start out in this jurisdiction. I'll be 3 jurisdictions down back in the state police up or somebody else, and it's very rural. So you kind of got to be on your toes. You can't be real haphazard. Um, I think there was a question. I'm gonna steal just for a second, Adam. Somebody asked a question about afraid to pull their weapon. I've never been afraid to pull my weapon. I've practiced my whole life. It's better to be prepared and have the skill set than not be prepared and never have to have the ability to use it. When I go to work, I do something every day, and I taught this when I ran the police academy. When I go to work every day, I draw the weapon out, make sure it's loaded, and I ask myself one specific question: if you had to use deadly force today, or if you had to use any kind of force today, could you do it? If you had to, and if I said no, I stayed home. So every day I go out to work out there. Even though I work in a pretty nice neighborhood, I'm still prepared to have to do what I have to do to protect people, including myself. And if you don't have that mindset, if you're afraid to pull the weapon out, then you probably do not need to be in this job. And
100%.
because you're going to hesitate when somebody needs you.
So we got a guy who was a police officer for 3 years, and he was in the EMS for 5. He was watching on TikTok. So where now, Rex, were you what kind of an area were you working in? Was it a lot of was it a city area, township? Tell us a little bit about where you were a police officer and your experience, man. I want to share it with everybody here. Adam, not that I really care what you have to say, but I think I'm going to ask you anyway. No. You know I love you, brother.
Yeah, I know
You
he's
know
a
I
good
love you.
dude. Adam's a good guy.
Yeah. If do you either of you have any regrets for the career path that you've taken? I mean, you look at this and the hard work that you have to do to even get into the job. When you're into the job runs your life pretty much. Do you have any regrets for having taken up this line of work?
I do not. I do not.
I
This was a second career for me. I was a truck driver for 20 years. And this is something I've always wanted to do. And I love 95% 95% of the days I go to work. I love my job.
And that's not even like going to work at that point if you love your job.
Right. So I'm blessed with the ability that most of my best friends work in the same building that I work at. So it's like going to hang out with friends. You know, and then I get to meet people like Eric, who I might bust his balls, but I know he's got my back at a moment's notice.
Yes.
So I have regrets.
All right, Eric.
Yeah.
Question. My wife.
Go ahead.
My wife's gonna love this question.
What, does Adam look like a hobbit on most days?
Oh my God, this is getting ugly.
Wow. Did you hear what my wife just said to Adam? A hobbit?
Adam, you don't look like a hobbit.
dude.
Everybody's so mean.
I think
You're right.
else it can't grow a beard like it.
Looks like Gimli.
I don't know who the hell that is, but
He was the dwarf in the Hobbit.
Oh, that's the dwarf. I mean, that's a cool comparison. Hobbits, though, no.
So, I
Oh
don't
my
know if
God.
anybody knows this or not, but Adam is our son-in-law's father. So, sorry, Adam. Unfortunately, we're related
God, I love these smacking seeds.
through marriage.
All
All
in
right.
favor. All in favor of loving Adam. Say aye.
All who are opposed. TikTok's over there raising their hands. I completely lost my train of thought. No, here my wife. I said my wife's gonna love this question. Traffic stop. You get the guy with the little veteran thing on his license. Does he get a little bit of extra preference? Give him a little extra leeway.
Not normally. I stop. Here's the thing. When I work patrol, I typically will stop anywhere between in a given year. I'll stop between 200 300 people. Because my goal is to educate rather than eradicate per se. And when I like the fact that they're veterans or nurses or EMS or teachers, and if they talk to me in a respectful manner, I generally will respond in kind. If I stop 200 people, 300 people, whatever it is, I can guarantee you that my personal, goal is I only write the tickets to those people who are basically are uncooperative and pretty much are going to be nasty with me. And I'm like, look, dude, I'm going to give you a warning. And they start saying, all these crazy F words and they start to disrespect me. I'm like, you know what? Here's your ticket. You can tell it to the judge and we'll explain it to you. But I don't let, those things like a lot of people will try to wear the blue line stickers on the vehicles. And sometimes that's a ploy, to get you to kind of drop your guard a little bit. And I do not drop my guard until the action. Yeah, somebody says the outcome will stop depends on your attitude. And that's true. I've been working in Lancaster County for 8 years since I retired from the other organization, and I've probably written 12 tickets in 8 years, and every one of them had real latent, like this guy was he was a hard person to deal with, and I especially when folks have the concealed carry permits. And I go, I love it, man. You're protecting the Second Amendment. I'm good with that. As long as you don't touch your gun on the traffic stop, we ain't gonna have any problem. Have a good day. I love the fact that you got your concealed carry, and so I generally have very very few problems on traffic stops or even interacting with people because my goal is not to go out there and make stats and numbers and all that. It's to say, look, I just need you to do this, this, and this.
So that quota thing is just a myth.
Yeah. I mean, I do give out toasters for guys that write a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. A few years back, I believe, probably in the 80s and 90s, up until the 80s and 90s, I think the quota thing was pretty heavy. And a lot of jurisdictions, like most of your state agencies, they call it work productivity. And they'll base your productivity. If you go out this month, you write 100 tickets per se. Next month, you write 25. Well, what's going on, officer? Why is your productivity kind of slipping a little bit? It's not that we have established quotas, but a lot of the jurisdictions say, well, your productivity is slipping off a little bit. What's going on? And that's kind of, yeah, it's a different way. So it's not a quota, but it's like you're being judged by your previous month's activity.
Mm.
And I tell guys, I tell my officers, don't go out and write tickets because you think I want you to write tickets. I don't care about tickets. What I care about is positive contacts with the public, and that's how I feel. So
You're a good
uh,
chief.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we make mistakes, but
I'm sure.
I
I
don't
mean,
want.
we're human beings. Man.
Yeah, I don't want them going out there, just squashing people. To me, it just doesn't feel right.
Rex wants to know if you pull over a fellow officer.
I'm gonna beat him down, boy.
That guy should know better. He should know better.
Well, I'll tell you what. I stopped an officer one time, and he let's put it like this: the contact didn't end the way he wanted it to end. And when I walked up to the car, he just flashed his badge at me, and he just goes, "Off duty police." I go, "Okay." I said, "But you were going this fast," and he goes, "Well, yeah, so, but I want professional courtesy." And I go, "Sir, you do realize you're going 91 in a 55?" He goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Well, that means I'm going to go ahead and call your precinct captain, whoever your captain is. I'm going to let them know." And I said, "I'm going to go ahead and write you the ticket, give it to your captain, and we can adjudicate it either way. But your captain is going to know you're going 91 miles an hour and you're flashing your badge like you're just gonna drive reckless." And he goes, "Oh, come on, man." And I go, "Dude, seriously?" I said, "Come on, dude. I'm not worried about the ticket." I said, "What I'm worried about you doing is speeding up and down this highway like a crazy maniac. And then when you get stopped, you flash your badge like it's an automatic get out of jail." And I says, "Dude, seriously?" And so I wrote the ticket, and his captain came down and got him. And I go, "If your captain doesn't come get you, I'm gonna charge you with more because I don't like the way you've approached this." And so I don't. Again, I'm not a heavy ticket writer, but what I do expect is to have some integrity in the service.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if the guy would have been like, "Yo, man, hey, dude, I screwed up. I wasn't thinking. I was in a hurry. My adrenaline's been pumped up today. I don't, I'd have been like, well, let's go ahead and talk about this." It would have been an educational moment, but he chose to go in a different path, and it is what
He
it
was
is.
abusing his badge.
Exactly, and I didn't appreciate that. And I talked to his captain, and I go, "Hey, captain," I said, "I don't care what you do with the young man." I said, "But I want you to know this is what he's doing out here with your badge." And so I kind of left it where it was at. And the captain called me about 3 or 4 days later, and he goes, "Hey, look, Eric, we took care of this situation." He says, "I just want to thank you." He said, "The young man, has had a change of heart," which he did. I mean, I believe he did, but we don't come across that very often, thank goodness.
That's a good thing because cops are supposed to be setting the example.
Yes,
If
and
if you're going to pull somebody over for something, you damn well better not get caught doing it yourself.
well, I tell you, I'm going to share with you one story. I fired an officer for doing something like that,
Good.
and he was writing insurance violation tickets. And remember, I got 41 years, so I didn't always spend it in Lancaster County. And this officer was in another state, believe it or not, and he was stopping people and writing them tickets, like $600, $700 no insurance tickets. Having no insurance. And I was like, man, this guy's written like 15 of these tickets. And so what we did in our agency was usually once a year we run the information for the officers, the vehicle registration to make sure everything was current. It was a standard practice. And he comes up, this officer has no car insurance on his car. And I call him in, I go, "Hey man, you got at the time I think it was a captain. And I go, "Your insurance is void. It's expired." I said, "It's been expired by a year and a half." I said, "But you're writing all these insurance tickets." And he goes, "Well, they need to have insurance." It wasn't about him, it was about everybody else. And I said, "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and suspend you. I'm removing your authority, and I'm going to give you 30 days with intent," which means I was going to fire him.
Yeah.
And he resigned before I had a chance to actually complete the paperwork. And he subsequently tried to go somewhere else, and they called me, and I was like, "This is what's going on here with this guy." And I just thought it was very hypocritical. And that was probably, God, that was probably 20 years ago.
Mm.
And the young man, he felt okay writing those tickets when in fact he was doing the same violations.
That's insane.
I mean,
That's
those
the kind of
guys,
stuff that pisses me off, bud.
yeah, those kind of guys will show themselves pretty early, believe it or not. And we do get rid of those kind of folks.
Good. Adam.
I do have. Oh,
No. You go. I've been talking. It's your turn. I'm going to shut up now. You have it.
This is kind of for both of you. This does have to go into like the mental health thing because, and don't get me wrong here, one of my best friends, my whole childhood growing up, her father was a police officer. So I know that's one of the best men that I've ever known. You know, I know that there are great police officers. So any question that I have, please understand it's not coming from like a place of, you know what I mean? um,
This is
but
going downhill.
no, what I want to ask is, do you think that there should be more mental health training within all of the different like first responder, groups? Because I feel like a lot of times things escalate when they shouldn't have to. When you're dealing with somebody who might be going through some kind of crisis or something of that nature.
Usually we get to them when it's too late. They're already deep into their crisis. Uh,
Hmm.
so a lot of times at that point they can't be talked down. But not everyone we go to is there either. Some people just want the help. They call us, hey, we just need a ride to the hospital. You know. So I mean, as far as mental health, we do get some training on it, but we don't get a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of training out there that doesn't end up with like MD or something behind it. Um,
And that's kind of where I guess my question is going. Do you both think that more investment in that kind of training for all first responders would be beneficial? Do you think that it would help to kind of repair a lot of the damage that has been done with relations between people and first responders?
Well, from the police perspective, everybody in my department has the crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour block of instruction on how to deal with crisis. I myself am a mental health crisis instructor. I went down to FLETC to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center for 2 weeks and learned all about the concepts and everything. Um, I a lot of times what happens from my experience from the crisis world, because we're generally the first on the scene typically when it comes to crisis. A lot of times it can be determined. It can be determined by the actual person who's experienced crisis or some sort of emotional event. The officers, when we get out there, we try to to mitigate, minimize, and everything. And sometimes there are going to be scenarios where no matter what level of training you got, it's going to go out of control because of the
Hmm.
nature of the person experiencing the emergency.
That's
And
true.
so we've spent our my folks, and I say this, we've spent a lot of money making sure our folks are, they call it CIT training, crisis intervention training. And it's a phenomenal program. It's the nationwide trend right now for how to respond to a crisis. Now, for the police officers, I'm going to share with you a story. When I ran our police academy, I ran our National Police Academy in a previous agency. I had an instructor come in and he goes, "Hey, Eric, I want to teach suicide awareness." And I was like, "Okay, cool. No big deal. Let's do it." Because I wanted to bring the guy on as an instructor. So I gave him some classes. And back in the day, it was kind of lightly covered. It was back, I'm talking 25 years ago. And so he taught a great class. He left on a Wednesday, went home that night and shot and killed himself.
Oh God.
And I, to this day, that happened back in '98. To this day, I wonder if there's something that I personally missed, some cue, some indicator. But he was talking normal. He was very, he wasn't giving away his stuff, the typical cues. And he went home, put a Glock to the back of his head, and killed himself.
Good Lord.
And it was terrible. And I beat myself up for a long time over that because I thought to myself, did I miss something? Was there something I should have caught? And I had to go out to the house to identify the body because the state police was there. And they were like, "Is this one of your officers?" And it was actually one of our duty weapons. And I was like, I was blown away. I was just like, "Oh my God, what did we miss?"
I'm really
Well,
sorry.
that's got
Uh,
to be
That
tough,
that
man.
had to be horrible.
it was, yeah, it was
Tough.
it was very traumatizing.
Um, there's a lot of I think mental health is overlooked um in all aspects.
Everywhere.
You're looking, I
I
mean,
agree.
look, PTSD is a real thing. And
Yes.
you guys that have served in the military, who've seen things. and they don't handle it well. Some guys handle it better than others. There is no cookie cutter way to deal with this type of thing. And I think that you really have to be an empathetic and very open person to be
Yes.
able to kind of engage with that person in a selfless way that's not going to put them or you in any more danger. And that's a tough thing to do.
And I think we also lose the fact that in the past, especially when it comes to the masculine world, when it comes to the men, they don't ask for help, right?
Yeah.
We're too tough. We're men. We don't need help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
and
so glad that people are
I,
starting to try and go away from that.
that's got to be something that's got to be corrected in the future. That it's okay to ask for help. In my business, you go take care of a 9-month-old baby that doesn't make it, but then you go to your house and you pick your 9-month-old baby up. It makes you think. It does a lot of thinking. It does a lot of dark stuff in your head, right? Like, so I think that needs to be addressed as well, especially in the police and the EMS services, the first responders. It's just not being addressed.
Well, we have in the police side of the house, and we have something called an EWS, early warning system, where it's fairly recent, last 15 years, and it deals with officer behavior, officer personality issues, things that start to indicate that this person has experienced some level of residual chronic buildup of stress or something else, and so we look for those things, and I've actually had a conversation, a few years ago where I actually had to bring an officer in to get him a mental health evaluation while he was on duty, because that's how unstable I thought he was, because he had been experiencing some critical events repetitiously, and we were concerned, and we were concerned he was going to overreact because of the nature of what was going on, or he was going to hurt himself or somebody else, and so we did relieve that guy for quite some time while he got counseling, and he came back and he was a better officer, and uniquely, um, my brother was a PTSD victim, and he saw some stuff, and this job here, it can be the EMS job, it can be the police job. We all experience a level of PTSD where we see traumatic events, and I still remember, and I'll talk about one experience in North Carolina when I was in the Marines. I ran with the Jacksonville Rescue Squad, and as an EMT, and I remember going out on this call, and I saw this. We actually saw the accident happen where this girl was trying to pass a car, and this big gas truck hit her head on. I mean,
Ooh,
literally hit her head on. She had bilateral fractures,
ooh.
and she's laying in the car. She's pinned in, and when I pulled her out of the car, now this has been 35 years, probably longer, and I pulled her out of the car, and I tried to stabilize her, and I started to give her CPR, but her chest was completely crushed. And I remember looking down at this girl in the middle of the highway, and she had Victoria's Secret's perfume on, and she had the most beautiful teeth I'd ever seen, but she was dead,
Ah,
and I wasn't bringing her back. And I still, every time I smell that smell to this day,
good Lord.
it still brings me back. And she was 18 years old, and she was dead on the spot right there. And the car that she had hit, the truck that she hit, the guy got out of the car, and the truck exploded, and he literally burned to death right in front of us.
Oh,
And so this was a single accident. And then I'll finish with one more because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But
good.
we took this guy to the hospital. He was probably 55, maybe 60 years old. He was a older gentleman, and he was having cardiac issues. And at the time, the protocol said we had to. He was a military veteran, so we had to take him to the Navy hospital on Camp Lejeune. And I kept telling the guy, I go, "Hey, sir, we probably need to stop over here at the hospital. We're going to pass right by the emergency room. Let's get you there so they can, do whatever with you pretty quickly." And the guy was like, "No, I got to go to the Navy hospital." He was adamant. And I kept explaining to him. I was in the back working as an EMT that day. And we pull into the Navy hospital. The guy sits up, he looks me right in the eye, and he goes, "Oh, shit." His eyes get really big, and he drops dead right in front of me.
What?
Literally he drops
He said,
dead.
oh shit.
He did. He looked right at me. He goes, "Oh, shit." And his eyes got really big, and he fell back in the gurney. He was dead on the door now. And so I'm screaming code blue because we backed into the ER, and they came out, they took him in, but the guy didn't make it. So those are things that you see, and you over a 41-year career, you sometimes you think about those things, and you have to find ways of alleviating that negativity.
So, what are some of the things you guys? This is a question from Rex. What do you guys do to de-stress? Start with you, Adam. Like, what do you do to? And don't talk about what you do with the sock in the bedroom. We'll talk about that when everyone's off. Tell me what you do to de-stress that's good for
That's why
public
his
viewing.
beard's gray, man. That's why his beard is gray.
And that's why I can't see anymore either.
What are
I'm
you
prob-
trying to
He's got
say?
a
My
hair on his
whole head's
palm.
gray.
I'm probably not the healthiest of de-stressors, but when it gets to the best of me, I drink. That's what I do.
You drink.
I do.
He drinks. This is not advice for
It's
you.
not
folks.
advice, but you asked a question, right?
Yeah, and I appreciate your honesty.
And
My friend Misery says she goes for long walks and meditates. That's what she does.
I hang out with friends, so that's the big thing for me. My friends and my family.
Good. You got to lean on those people. That's a good
That's a
support.
better answer.
It is.
Right.
What about you,
I
Eric?
mean,
What do you do to de-stress?
Well, I've discovered, and of course, over all my years anyway, I go for a run 3 or 4 times a week. I do the weight workouts. I walk, and I just sometimes, I'll sit downstairs in the chair, and I'll just kind of meditate, kind of stare for a bit. The only vice I have is, and my son-in-law knows this. My son-in-law's a deputy sheriff, uh, and he's a patrol deputy. But the only vice I have is I'll sit out back once or twice a month, and I'll have a cigar. If I get a long cigar, he knows it's going to be a long talk, and I've had a rough week. If it's a shorter cigar, he knows we're going to talk for about 45 minutes to an hour. And he tries to give me drink beer. I don't drink beer. Um, I literally, I like the knife there. Um,
Not a
and
knife,
what is
it's a
that?
cigar.
Oh, look at you. What is that? I spoke to Gurkha yesterday.
This is what is this, Monica? I can't read it. It's a
Is that a Maduro?
Tatiana. It's a Tatiana Fusion Frenzy.
Look at you, man. All high class.
I don't know
Yeah.
about high class, but no,
Oh
careful
no,
what you put
I'm
out there.
a cigar smoker, so I have the high class. When he picks it, it smells like butthole.
You like Rocky Patel?
Oh, have you tried? Yeah, Rocky Patel's. I like the Gurk is the best though, believe it or not.
Gurkha.
And because it's smooth, it has a good taste to it. It's a good quality.
hmm
And so that's my only advice. I'll smoke a cigar, but I'll just sit there, relax for 2 hours, and just put the music on and sit there and just look out there and watch the dogs play.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and I find if I can't work out, I'm not winning any marathons or anything.
Yeah.
But if I can't work out, I feel the stress start to accumulate for me.
See, for me, I have a sweet tooth. All right, that's why I love the churro smacking. I've got to get that plug in. That's why I love them, because they're sweet. But I like my sweeter cigars too. I like them to be smoother. I like them to have a good flavor. You get them bitter ones. There's ones that are just like,
Oh.
it's not, it doesn't, who enjoys that? I'm sure there's people that do, but I don't enjoy that. I really like to have that smooth, like easy draw, but and Adam enjoys the ganja and the occasional bong hit from now and then, I'm sure. No, but in all seriousness, a line of Coke once in a while is never going to hurt anybody.
Oh my gosh. Stop it.
Take a long one, Adam. Take a long one.
Take a long one, Adam. Take the long one home.
That's it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There you go.
I do have one more difficult question, and I know this one is pretty controversial, but this is one that's kind of been weighing on me a lot. I don't know how familiar you are with what's going on in Atlanta right now, the whole Cop City thing. And I know that there are other ones that are planning to be built. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And especially in Atlanta with so much opposition from like the local community that lives there.
Well, my expertise in federal service was law enforcement training.
Mhm.
And you brought up a good point earlier about mental health crisis training, more training for the officers and everything. You have to have defined training centers for officers to learn and make mistakes in a training environment. You have to provide an environment where they're going to fail in a training world that's controlled and It's controlled, and it is it allows the officer to fail but make a mistake and learn. That's the purpose. Like when I used to teach down at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and all these other places, um, you make it so the officer will fail and they'll learn a lesson. So in Atlanta, the G post as they call it, because I actually hold a Georgia post certification. Um, but the G post down there, the Gypstick and G post and all that, they need a very defined training center to, to show these folks. And around the Atlanta metropolitan area, Fulton County and all these other counties down there, you need to have a location where officers can travel to that's going to be secure, where they can learn complex situations. Just like the Army does when we do maneuvers, they practice maneuvers in these training centers. I don't know the political part of building a location where the
It's
environment
the
is.
forest. It's one of the few big green spaces that that community has, and it's
Right.
also very important to the indigenous community there. And so there is a lot of opposition, and that's just one of the reasons. And I think that that's the one that kind of hits me hardest is the fact that they're going to be tearing down the few places that those people have access to greenery, to nature. It helps to stop a lot of the more extreme weather. And it's also important to the indigenous community, which for me is the biggest factor.
Well,
Is it
I
Piedmont
mean,
Park? Sorry.
Hmm?
Are you
is
talking
it?
about? Shane wants to know if you're talking about Piedmont Park.
It's the Waylani forest, I believe.
Oh, I don't know anything about
That's
that.
that's the indigenous name.
I've never heard of these police cities that you're talking about. Anyway, I mean, a police city. Like, what does that? What does that even
It's
mean?
not
It's a
a
training
city.
academy.
Yeah, it's a big urban training facility. It's very, very large. And they are planning to build others throughout the country.
Well, I think excluding the political stuff that I'm not very familiar with, um, they have like currently they have several training centers like Fletzy, Brunswick, Georgia, Fletzy, Artesia. They've got a few in New Mexico. They've got the old Army base in Alabama. I think it's Fort McClellan. They have several regional training centers, and I know in Atlanta area they had a where they filmed The Walking Dead. By the way, is an old Army base, and it
Right.
would probably they probably would have been best served probably taking that property to surplus and making it. And I think they've subsequently sold it to the movie theaters or the movie industry.
And that's what a lot of people are so upset about. It's like this, they are spending, I think it's over 100 million at this point to build it. And it's with taxpayer dollars, and the entire community is very against it. And I think that that's why it's such a big issue, especially when you look at, the fact that that green space does prevent so much extreme weather, and the fact that it is important to the indigenous community, the fact that it is one of the only places they can go to see something like that, because I mean they live in Atlanta, and
Right.
I think that, and it's the size of it really, because you don't need something that big to teach complex, like it's literally going to be like the size of a town, and they're
Well,
looking at building those elsewhere.
yeah, I don't know about the political part. That's outside my world. But I can say for for training, setups and all that from my world, you almost have to have a town size to train them in almost every complex setup.
Hmm.
Again, I don't know anything about the politics of what's going on in Atlanta and in the city of Sonoya and the base. Yeah, Fort McPherson, which used to be the Army CID headquarters. Um, any rate, so you kind of need a location. And again, I don't know anything about that location. I just heard they had some disruptions and some disturbances and all that. But
Yeah, there's been a
you
lot
know,
of protesting.
yeah. So outside the in the environmental thing, that's not my area of expertise. I couldn't even tell you.
Well,
So that kind of facility you think is necessary, but you aren't really sure what's going on with the location and the politics and all of that.
Right, exactly. I mean, they probably would have been better served taking in just my opinion, maybe taking a defunct military base and converting it like they
That
did
could
with
be
Fletzy.
repurposed. It would be cheaper, and it would
I
not
agree.
step on so many toes. And I think that that's why people are so up in arms. They're taking away acres and acres and acres of this green space that They don't even want it there. They're using so much of their tax money to do it when they could, like you said, repurpose something else and spend less of their tax money that could be put back into their community, because their other argument is their community is very impoverished.
Right.
And there's not a lot of resources for them. So they're like, you're spending all of this money on this that could be spent to give us better resources, better infrastructure.
Yeah.
But that money they're spending there is also going to create jobs for the lower poverty, area, and it's going to be better paying jobs than what they can get now. Just my 2 cents on that.
Well, I mean, it
It,
makes
it
sense what you're
depends on
saying.
how much civilian work will be available there, though. That's the other thing. Like how much of the work that's going to be there is going to be civilian work, and I think they're bringing in like big contracting companies. It's not like the local community is the one building this, you know.
Well, if they build lodging like they do at Fletzy and Brunswick, um, I know the Fletzy and Brunswick, Fletzy Artesia have a great impact on the local areas for as economics for jobs. Um, they have to have people that works in the they work in the chow halls, they work in the actual lodging, they work in the maintenance, they run the tracks, they do the instructing. A lot of those folks are local folks, and they do contribute to the local economy. Again, outside the environmental stuff that you're discussing, I don't even try to comment on that. But if you're going to run a facility like that, I mean, it seems to me you probably find a defunct, military base of some sort, and I
Exactly.
There's
don't know
enough of
why
them.
they. What's that?
There's enough of them.
They got
They,
plenty of
it
them.
it it has a lot to do with the fact that um, they wanted something state of the art, and also I think that there has been a lot of bad publicity for Atlanta PD, from what I understand. And,
Right.
they want to try and fix that. They want to bring in new officers. They want to try and recruit new officers. And I mean, while I understand that that's, something that they should try to do, I think they're going about it in a way that isn't helping their case much with the locals at all.
Well, look, there's people complaining that police aren't doing their job. You don't let the police get training and let the police do. It's a double-edged sword. So, on one side, you got people, well, the police aren't doing what they're supposed to do. But then we have these people on the other side, well, we don't want them to do this. This, make up your mind. All right. You need police protection. Yes, there's ways that people can, we could repurpose old buildings and things like that. And I really wish they would. There's enough of it. But
Instead of
there,
taking so much forest
there's got to be, but there's more forest in this country than people even realize. There's a lot.
in that area specifically.
I don't know that area, so I can't really speak to it. I don't know it. You know what I mean? But I think when you're getting near to these populations that have really high crime rates, you've got to give these people a safe place to conduct their training and to be effective without having to worry about being obstructed in any way, shape, or form, protested, whatever. I'm just saying this stuff happens all the time. Look what's going on in these college campuses. But for these guys, they need to have a solid place. They need to have a solid place to be able to go. I know, bite your tongue until it bleeds. All right. She's a
Love
bleeding
you.
liberal. Okay, just so you know, she's a
Oh,
bleeding liberal.
I'm not. I don't call myself a liberal. I'm a
No,
leftist.
I'm just
Leftist.
messing with you. But so, and I'm on the right side of things, but we get along because we can actually have civil discourse without just killing each other.
That and we can't get rid of each other, so better
As
learn
much as
to
we'd like to
get
some
along.
days. But no, guys, really quick before we wrap things up here, we're coming up on an hour. Let's say, all right, I want to start with you, Adam. Okay, give the listeners some advice on how to interact with paramedics when they or medics, EMTs, or whoever when they show up on the scene. What is the best way for people to interact with you to be cooperative and make it go smooth?
Just be nice. You
Just be
called
nice.
us. Yep, you called us, right? So just be nice. If it's a parent or if it's a son or daughter, have a family history for us. Have a medication list for us. And just treat us like people, because that's what we are, right? I'm not a doctor. I can't come to your house and fix you. I got to take you to a doctor. So just be nice. That's what I
There
got.
should be more of that, period. full stop, everywhere. Especially people that are trying to help you.
100%. What about you, Eric? You pull up on
Well,
somebody. What is the best way to navigate a traffic stop with a police officer in today's world?
well, I mean, almost any contact you have with an officer. Typically, what I look at, I'll be honest with you, before I make any discussions or anything, I'm watching to make sure your hands are where I can see them. If your hands are where I can see them, then it generally takes the level of the stop down. Some people will nervously sit on their hands, on their under the laps because they don't want to present a threatening image with their hands. Well, I'm not really going to discuss business until I can kind of slowly see your hands come out where I can see them. When people are upset because it's very nerve wracking to get stopped or have contact with the police in your house or something else. Like I think Adam said, just be calm. I had an accident last week, not me. I went out on a two-car accident with a couple older ladies, and I got out and I was like, stepped out of the car, and they were all emotional. They were screaming, and hollering, and us as the police officers, we try to remain calm. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. How you doing? You guys okay? Do you need an ambulance? You guys all right? Can I help you out? And let's go ahead and I'm gonna take some pictures real quick so I can move these cars out of the lane of travel so we don't get hit. The lady, she happened to be a retired lawyer, actually. And she says, you know what? She says, you're the calmest guy I've ever come across in these situations. And I go, oh,
She sounds just
okay.
like that.
Yes, it was just like that. It sounded like Jimmy Neutron's teacher. And so I go, well, thank you. I said, I appreciate that. So, like what Adam said, just be nice. And once Gizzard's in your life, he's there for oh, okay. I was reading what somebody had typed. Combative patience. Nah, I can, when it talks about patience and people, I can deal with them. But at any rate, so long story short, just be nice, calm. We know it's probably the worst day of your life because you've had to call the police. You're very excited. You're very emotional. I'm watching every move that you're making to make sure you're not a threat to me. And once I realize that you're not really a threat, you've kind of calmed down a little bit, we can de-escalate. But the important thing for us on the police side of the house, if I go in there screaming and hollering, I'm not bringing it down. So I go in there, and I never even realized what I was doing until the old lawyer told me. And she says, I like the way you deal with people. She says, very calm. She says, I was having a bad day. And I go, cool. You want some coffee? I said, I got some coffee over here. I'll pour you up a coffee while we're waiting for the tow truck. And so it's just the way you respond. And again, we know that sometimes it's your worst day, and we just try to maintain a calm demeanor. And I try not to get sucked into the drama.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we have to be careful with.
I can tell you, listen, you're going to love this. I've got 27 hits on my driving record. So when I was younger,
I've got none. Jeez.
I drove a lot without worrying about whether I had insurance or inspection was right. And then this one cop in E-Town, man, he had my number, man. Shane, he waited for me. He sat there. He's like, I know he's going to drive. And he drove. I was suspended, I think, for a total of 6 years. I just kept going. But you know what? Those guys were really cool with me. They didn't treat me like, they're like, dude, how dumb are you? Come on, stop. You're
Yes.
digging your own. He's like, if you keep this up, you're going to end up in front of a judge, man. Eventually it registered, and I got it all squared away. But I've gotten pulled over because I do happen to have a lead foot. Just it is what it is. I go fast down the highway. I've gotten pulled over, and police have been very generous with me. Hey, slow it down. All right, be safe. All right, and I feel like a lot of it had to do with the fact that I got that little veterans designator on my license. They cut me some slack because I'm a vet, and I was respectful and calm. And I said, hey man, I know. You know why I pulled you over today? I didn't say that's your job. Why you tell me? I was like, yeah, I was hammering down. I was going a little fast, and you're doing your job. And I think when you give these guys the respect and you treat them with respect, they give it right back to you. 99 times out of 10.
It's about a relationship because I've had people that I've stopped and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write this guy a ticket for whatever. And I get up there and like, yo man, you got me. God, you got me, dude. I was wrong. Damn, you got me. And I go,
Did you pull Adam
oh,
over?
what's that? I got Adam.
Was
I
that
got
Adam you pulled over?
So I'm gone. But
Son of a bitch.
because they disarmed the situation, I'm like, Hey, you know what? You're right. Okay. And I would typically go on the side of a warning. And but you're right, attitude's everything. And again, the officer 9 times out of 10, most of them are very upstanding. They're not, nasty or anything. And but sometimes the attitude does talk people into situations they probably can't get out of.
Mm-hmm.
That's always
Absolutely.
been my thing. If I deal with, any authority figure, I just be nice, do what I'm told. I don't volunteer much because, well, I've never done anything that I would really need to worry about it. But it's like I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but I stay calm. I feel
Yeah.
like that's just common sense.
Oh
Well,
I
yeah.
common
And
sense isn't so common.
be over. I keep a pack of them old fashioned donuts sitting on the passenger seat. He loves them cream filled old fashioned donuts.
Oh,
I
those are good.
do.
Those Turkey
Give
Hill ones.
Hey,
it ha-
he tells me they're cream filled.
Oh, they're cream filled. They just come out of his personal kitchen.
Oh, dust.
That's why
Poor
you can't
Adam.
see right. That's why you can't see right. That's why. Wear glasses, Adam. Hey guys, thank y'all so much for coming on here today and talking a little bit about your stories and sharing your stories. And thank you guys so much for doing what you do, guys. Your service is invaluable. And believe me, it is more than appreciated by more than I can even say. You got the haters out there, but silence that shit, guys. We love you and we definitely respect for what
Very
you got.
much.
Well, thank you for your service
Thank
too.
thank you very much.
Fellow brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Even though you're a
Wouldn't that
cranny
be more like,
Marine,
wouldn't that be more like a father son?
I
Well,
don't
I'm just
know.
gonna say this. I'm just gonna say, is the rumor that all Cav Scouts are gay? Is that true?
All Cab Scouts today. I don't know. There's people on here that might agree with you.
I
I don't
I
know,
had a
but
friend of
I
mine. Friend of mine was a Cav Scout in helicopters. He was an aerial Cav Scout.
Air Cap.
He loved that job. He was what a great guy he was. He used to tell me all the monikers and the stories. I'm like, dude, that's crazy, man.
Well, you don't want me talking about what we have to do when we go for our spurs. We'll just leave that for something else. All
Yeah,
right.
we'll save that for another
Slim
speech.
Jims and alcohol. That's all. I ain't saying nothing else. All right, guys. Thank y'all for being here. Join us next week, Sunday, 8:30 p.m. We have a show lined up. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I have not completely locked this person down. But if I do, you guys are going to have a great time. Join us again next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll put it out a little sooner. I wasn't able to get in touch with these guys as early as I would have liked to because Adam's a slacker. And I couldn't get the show put together earlier like I wanted to because, again, Adam's a slacker. And that's just the way it is. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, bum. You were busy and I get it. I'm just messing with you. So join us again next week, guys.
They were
8:30.
out there saving lives.
Exactly. It wasn't your fault, really. It was mine because I was lazy. I was too worried about doing some smacking seeds. Guys, we'll see you on the next show, next Sunday at 8:30 p.m., guys.